All right. And when I want to learn more, I call in these guys. Right here, Ryan Callahan, Vince Ferrara, Mark Pankratz, former D1 basketball player, former assistant coach at Tennessee, and right down there, Tyler Ivins. Thanks to all you gentlemen for being here. As I mentioned, Tennessee, they put up a good fight yesterday. It was a heck of a game, ugly, low scoring. It was a grinded-out battle. Tennessee had a lead with 2 minutes to go. Wound up losing 53-51, though they did have a good look at it at the end of the game. We'll be getting deeper. I know we're going to talk about the physicality. We're going to really get deep into that in the next segment. But I just want your top takeaways here. Mark, start us out.
Well, to me, I like the physicality over jacking a bunch of threes, the way that college basketball has been going. So, it was an impressive outing for us. I thought we played well in certain aspects. Zakai Zeigler, we were talking about before the show, I mean, he's going to go down as one of the favorite Vols of all time, just the way that kid competes on both ends of the floor. Great to see Meshack start to turn around. And then Igor. Igor is a guy we've talked about of being a difference maker when things were going really well, and I think we're 17-0 or 15-0. He's struggling. And we really need that position between him and Dubois to step up, and those guys didn't step up last night, which I think was a big difference maker.
Igor Milicic, 1 of 6, unimpressive all across the stat column, missed a late driving shot. Not his, basically typical of this show. I bragged on him a couple of weeks ago, and since then, he's got to put a lid on the basket for him. Gentlemen, top takeaways from last night's game.
Yeah, I kind of start with Milicic. That's the first thing that jumped out to me. Not his best night, clearly, and you mentioned that late drive. That was a big moment in the game. He looked like he was onto something and then didn't finish it well. So need more out of him. A lot of people will probably talk about the final possession, getting Zeigler the final look. I didn't think it was a bad look overall. He was 0 for 6 from 3 last night, so just not his night from the perimeter, not anybody's night from the perimeter, really, aside from a couple Chaz Lanier threes. But, you got to knock down some shots to win a game like that. They just didn't quite hit enough. But overall, I think a lot of positives to take away from that, even in a loss.
I think it was a mix. I think there's positives, and then there's things that are long-term concerns. I'm not crazy about the lack of tempo that this team has, and part of it may be just opportunities. Part of it may be because they don't have a lot of depth. And I think that can hurt them because everything is a grind for them, and teams that play really good defense, you see what a struggle it is. And it only takes one. When you don't have a lot of depth and 1 or 2 guys are off that you normally count on, then where are your answers? Now, I think this team at times lacks answers. The toughness they showed, being able to stay in that game against the number 1 team in the country when they weren't shooting the ball well because of their toughness and just being able to make plays. Those are all very much positives that will give them a chance in the end, but there's still some things that they've got to get better at.
We'll put up the shot charts in a little while, and people, when you see it, it's going to be a whole heck of a lot of blue because everyone was cold from every area of the floor last night, both teams. But you brought up 2 points I wanted to get to. Fast break points last night. Auburn had 4, Tennessee had 6. You had 10 transition points the entire game last night. And in terms of bench points, Auburn 24, Tennessee 10. And I think that, if you're talking about something that's going to be a chronic issue for that team, that's it. We've talked about it since you started losing players earlier this year. You don't have a lot of guys sitting over there to bring in. So as Ryan said, you can't afford to have a Milicic with a bad night or a Lanier with a bad night. You have to have most of those guys firing because you just don't have a lot of guys that are going to come off that bench and make a difference, whereas Auburn put up 14 more points from the bench than you did. Makes a difference. Tyler, your thoughts?
I'll ask the rhetorical question to everybody. Who's Tennessee's number 3 scorer right now? We still don't have that answer. Games like last night is when a shooter or a scorer emerges. I have said multiple times on our show as well as here on the set, I got to find somebody. I like Zakai Zeigler for everything that he does. Great facilitator. I'd love to have Zakai be the number 3 scorer on this team and not ask him to do as much. 12 and 10 a night, but he plays lockdown defense, taking their best player out of the game. But who's going to emerge as that number 2? Thought last night could be another opportunity for Darlin Stone to bar. 1 point. Just completely no-shows. Igor Milicic, completely no-shows. Tennessee had a chance to win this game last night. They have just a wink more bit of scoring. But it seems every game we keep asking in Nashville, last night, we're going to be asking these same questions coming up later this week when we get back-to-back home games. I don't know who that another third or that next scorer is. You got to know who it is by February, though. If not, it could be a short turnaround and go home.
Well, and the reality is it's probably been Gainey in some big-time moments.
right.
Right? Gainey made some big shots last night. He fouls out. But the problem is with that is you got Zakai, you got Chaz, you got Gainey, and Meshack's going to play because of his defense.
Yeah.
So then you got 4 guards. That's why it's got to be Igor. It's got to be Dubois. It's got to be somebody else on the interior that we can get points from. because if not, like, we don't have the interior. Look at how we lost to Florida. Look at how we lost
Yeah.
in the past. We've not defended the interior. Like Broom last night comes in, not played for a week, and he ends up having a big game.
Well, that's going to ask. There was talk at halftime. Some of the ESPN analysts were bringing up the fact, why isn't Tennessee challenging him more? Why aren't they going at him more? Why aren't you trying to wear him down, wear him out? He hasn't played in 2 weeks.
Pick and roll.
He wound up playing 35 minutes last night, so I don't know that wearing him down was going to be an option anyway. But should they have gone at Janai Broom a little bit more?
Well, to me, they were talking about ball screen action, getting him moving, getting him working on that ankle. But the reality is they're in drop defense anyway, so they're staying off the screener and letting the
So it didn't
point guard
matter.
drive it. And that's not Zakai's game. Zakai hitting a pull-up jump shot, and they were willing to give that up. I do think getting him moving would have been helpful. I do think he wore down a little bit towards the end. But it's hard, a delicate balance as a coach to say, all right, are we going to go away from what we do the most, and versus trying to expose the opportunity that Broom's injury may have been?
I thought he showed why he's probably the best player in the country, though, last night, because even he made plays. I mean, he made some big plays in that game, and to come back after, and naturally it's Tennessee luck that he sprains his ankle 2 weeks ago, misses 2 weeks, and then comes back for you. He credited the Auburn training staff, give them a big plus last night for getting him ready. But he looked like the best player in the conference, if not the country, last night.
I think the big thing he did was the offensive rebounds.
Yep.
You know, the second chance point.
16 points, 13 rebounds, 4 blocks. Pretty good night for your first game action in 2 weeks.
And think about that one at the end where he kicked it back out, gets it along the baseline, kicked it out for a 3. I mean, that was massive. That was the lead that they wouldn't relinquish. And, you know, they had 15 offensive rebounds in the game. That's where Milicic, 2 boards for your leading rebounder. I mean, that is tough. You need Milicic, you need Akpar to be able to grab those rebounds. And, you know, it was a tough night for them in that area.
We were talking before the show. I trust Zeigler as a player, maybe more than anybody, but 39 minutes last night.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy leaves it all out there on the court. 39 minutes, 14 points, 5 assists. He did miss the 3 at the end. I trust him more than any other player on that team.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me as a shooter, I trust Lanier more. Lanier's a better shooter. Even when he goes through his cold streaks, he's the shooter. So I don't have a huge problem with Zakai getting the last shot.
Right.
I would have preferred it be Lanier. But, Mark, your thoughts on what they might have done there?
I think that the challenge with Lanier right now is his being able to get separation coming off a screening action. He's not overly fast to where he can get a screen and separate. And so what you'll see is he gets a lot of his shots where Zakai penetrates in pitches or in transition, or he shot fake pull-up jump shot. And in that instance, getting off the screening action to have enough space to be able to shoot it, I would have rather have gone to Chaz. Zakai hadn't been shooting it well, tough shot in the corner. But to your point, I mean, with gaining out, really that's probably your second best option.
And I like that Lanier didn't force it last night. He obviously is going to continue to get a lot of attention. He didn't force it, but at a certain point, you got to get your best shooters some extra shots. And I don't like Zeigler taking more shots than him in most games like this.
Well, because it was often inbound, you're not relying on the read and react that the normal offense has. In Tennessee, typically it's very good off of set plays. So maybe the first read, Lanier, he wasn't sprung open, and Zakai was. I was okay with it, but I'm with you. I think ideally that would have been best, but you wouldn't want it to be a bad Lanier 3. I would have taken that over that.
Yeah, I mean, they got the look.
Yeah.
Right.
So anything you want to
0
close
from
us on?
3 last night. I would have rather had Jazz take that shot than Zakai Zeigler. I feel like I'm beating up on Z, who's the heartbeat of this team. It's just this guy can be so much better if, again, Tennessee finds a second scorer. That's going to be the homework for the remainder of the season. And you thought last night against the number 1 team in the land, they had a chance to pull that off.
All right, when we come back, we kind of danced around the officials there for a reason. I'm going to spend a whole segment on that. We don't like talking officiating here, but this wasn't, they stole it. This was more, boy, this whole game was played different than most of the SEC games this year. We'll get into it. There was talk this week that the SEC's calling too many fouls. Not last night. A lot of swallowing the whistle. We'll talk about it when we come back on the Sports Source.